Bitter criticism. Reading, I don't remember now. So now I'm only left the only left. What only left is Al Jazeera economy. Maybe there will be another live update, not just the usual strangulation. Israel kills 31 in Gaza as aid blockade starves children. Terrible, the usual terrible news. But let's see what's going on in the economy field. It's funny, isn't it? Economy, how activists and immigrants in the US can protect their privacy. Economy, about Palestine also. But is it interesting? Let's read it. Special economy. US federal agents have been known to use video surveillance, social media monitoring, facial recognition, or geolocation data to identify who is participating in protests. Experts warn as they try to crack down on dissent. How activists and immigrants in the US can protect their privacy. Who knows? You know what I think about this subject? As time goes by and the US is declining, the United States will have no money to spy, you know. And as a poor country in the future, the foreseeable future, there will be no merit, there will be no meaning to spy anybody, because nobody will live there. Everybody will just fly away from the US. That's what I think. So the US will be a very mediocre country. Nobody wants to live there. Nobody actually lives there. There's no need for spy on anybody. Nobody's doing nothing there. Understand? With Trump government crackdown on protesters, some immigrants and activists have been arrested, deported, or stuck at border by Todd Benson, May 1st, 2025. Civil liberties have come under threat since the United States President Donald Trump took power in January. The Trump administration has primarily targeted more vulnerable groups, such as immigrants, tourists, and non-American activists, as U.S. law does not grant them the same protections as U.S. citizens. But as I said, I guess the flow of immigrants will decrease in the United States because nobody will go there, because everybody's poor, everybody's broke there. Some immigrants and tourists have found themselves trapped at the border for long periods of time. In some cases, they have been held due to social media posts critical of Trump. That has raised the question: what should a person be prepared for? What should a person be prepared for when they are going to encounter U.S. immigration agents and points of entry? Crossing the U.S. border is a point of particular vulnerability for targets of Trump's crackdown. U.S. Customs and Border Protection (CBP) detained Lebanese physician and assistant professor at Brown University, Racha Alawi, as she attempted to re-enter the United States in March, and eventually deported her after agents allegedly discovered images related to Hezbollah on her phone. Yeah, you know. But in the future, there will be. I actually, in recent history in the United States, there's no there's no terrorism. Even the 9/11, that was nothing. I mean, that was no real terrorism. That was false flag, a giant false flag. Anyway, discover images related to Hezbollah on her phone. This is too extreme. I guess I have images. I'm not sure if Hezbollah, but definitely I have critical. I definitely cannot go to the United States. Look my post on this very channel talking about the aliens and stuff. The agency provided no evidence that she had any connection to the paramilitary group, and she tried to explain that she did not support them before she was eventually sent to Lebanon. Tom Bowman, Policy Counsel at the Center for Democracy and Technology (CDT), says crossing the U.S. border raises quote distinct privacy concerns because Customs and Border Protection has more authority to reach people than regular law enforcement. They are allowed to search people's electronic devices, quote, without a warrant or probable cause, he says. Quote, if you are a citizen, they cannot deny you entry into the country on the basis of refusing to unlock your phone. They may confiscate the phone, but they can't deny your entries, end quote, says Bill Buggington, a senior staff technologist at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, EFF. Quote, if you are at risk of deportation, then it might be advisable to comply with any requests by customers and border enforcement. But that doesn't mean you can minimize the amount of data you are carrying with you, end quote. Again, why should I go to the US? In the first place, there's no jobs there. There's nothing there. There's no education opportunities. There's no jobs opportunity. Why people still going to the US? And it's ridiculous because in the near future there will be nobody there. Quote, some travelers choose to limit what data carry across the border, end quote, says Bauman. Quote, that may involve using a travel-only device, storing essential information in the cloud, and logging out of all accounts, or removing sensitive apps and files entirely. Others opt to shut down devices completely before arriving at the border, relying on full disk encryption to protect their contents, end quote. I don't even know all this full disk encryption. There's a link here. Interesting. There is an article to redirect to Berkeley University about it. Well, it's taking just too long. Forget about it. Surveilling, and there's a video, the U.S. administration's unlawful revoking of student visas for voicing opposition against Israel's genocide on Gaza. Surveilling social media. I don't know what ICE has been targeting student protesters who support Palestine, and it often surveils social media to do so. Budar Kansuri, a postdoctoral fellow at Georgetown University, was seized by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Oh, that's it. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) in March, as he returned to his home following Ramadan iftar. ICE alleged Suri, who was born in India and was in the US on a student visa, was, quote, spreading Hamas propaganda and promoting anti-Semitism on social media, end quote, which his lawyers have denied. 2 days earlier, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services had announced that it would screen the social media accounts of people applying for permanent residence and non-residents and non-citizens affiliated with educational institutions for evidence of anti-Semitic activity. Anti-Zionists, I guess. Anyway. But no, for real, I guess I know the future. You know, in the near future, the United States will start will be complete, will decline completely, and will be as absolutely mediocre country, and nobody will migrate there. And there will be no reason for all this spying on people, you know. Nobody will care about this country. Punishing protests. While the Trump administration has not yet invoked the Insurrection Act, it is punishing people for protesting non-citizens for now. The administration has notably been trying to deport a student activist at Columbia University named Mahmoud Khalil because of his involvement in pro-Palestinian protests. And his is just one of several similar cases. Quote, I think people should be very concerned, end quote, says Daniel Solovey, a professor of intellectual property and technology law at George Washington University. Quote, we are living in a surveillance society, and the government can use facial recognition technologies and AI-assisted surveillance technologies to systematically identify and track protesters. We are already seeing the government go after protesters, end quote. Cornell University student and activist Momodo Taal had his student visa revoked and recently decided to leave the U.S. to avoid deportation. That's it. But people will start stop migrating to the U.S. because of poverty, because of lack of opportunities in the U.S. Yoon Seo Chung, a Columbia student and activist and a legal permanent resident who moved to the U.S. from South Korea at age 7, has also been targeted by ICE. Federal agents might use video surveillance, social media monitoring, facial recognition, or geolocation data to identify who is participating in protests, Bauman says. He says people documenting protests with photos and videos can also unintentionally identify who participated in a particular demonstration, so people should be careful about how they are using their devices. Quote, one basic protection is to turn your phone on airplane mode when you are going to a protest. That will ensure that you are not sending your data in real time. Yeah, that's a good one, end quote, says Buddington. Quote, you can still navigate streets with offline maps. Both Google Maps and Apple Maps have a way to do that, quote, end quote. Protesters can also use messaging apps like Signal to communicate during protests because then their messages can be encrypted. Some might recommend just leaving your phone at home. And that pretty much is. Oh, this is very interesting, actually. Well, it's finishing. The phone at home. Just 1 second. I lost the news. At home. Some might recommend just leaving your phone at home, but you might want to leave it in case of an emergency. Yeah, but you might want to leave it in case of an emergency, or if you want to document wrongful police actions. It is essentially impossible to avoid all governments snooping and keep one's data completely secure 100% of the time. But there are actions people crossing the border or attending protests can take that will help reduce the risk of them being targeted by the government. Americans are becoming more aware of their need for privacy, and they are looking for ways to protect themselves. But Buddington says people seem to be a lot more concerned about privacy than they were 5 or 10 years ago. Quote, the government already has massive troves of personal data and is using it improperly. The government already had countless surveillance technologies and is using them. End quote. Solove says, quote, we are already in a constitutional crisis. It seems that this administration will push as far as they can until they are stopped. Source Al Jazeera. Published on Al Jazeera English, and that's it. And this is Valparaiso.